In the shadowy streets of Paris during the German occupation, a quiet revolution was brewing, one that would challenge the very foundations of Nazi propaganda and control. The year was 1940, and the city, once a beacon of culture and freedom, was now a hushed landscape under the iron grip of the Third Reich. The German forces, emboldened by their swift victories across Europe, were convinced that their authority was unassailable. Among the many groups they overlooked were the women of the French Resistance, who would soon prove to be a formidable force in the struggle for liberation. The German police and the Gestapo, tasked with suppressing dissent, viewed the resistance efforts led by women with a mix of scorn and disbelief. They labeled these women the newspaper women, dismissing their efforts to publish underground newspapers as trivial and inconsequential. This underestimation would soon become a critical miscalculation, as these women were not merely passive observers, they were determined agents of change, fueled by a fierce commitment to reclaim their country from tyranny. During the occupation deepened, daily life in Paris transformed dramatically. The once bustling cafes, where intellectuals and artists gathered, became sites of whispered conversations and furtive glances. The vibrant culture of the city was stifled under the weight of fear and repression. Yet, amidst this oppressive atmosphere, the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance began to organize, recognizing the power of information as a weapon against their oppressors. The women understood that the dissemination of accurate information was vital to countering the pervasive German propaganda that sought to demoralize the French populace. They began to meet in secret, often in the back rooms of cafes or in the privacy of their homes, sharing stories of courage and defiance. These clandestine gatherings became the crucible for their resistance efforts, as they strategized and planned the creation of an underground press that would soon challenge the narrative imposed by the occupiers. The women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance were not alone in their struggle. They forged alliances with men and women who shared their vision of a free France, creating a network of collaborators committed to the cause. This solidarity would prove essential as they embarked on their mission to inform and inspire the French people through the written word. By the time the years of occupation dragged on, the resolve of these women only strengthened. They recognized that their fight was not just against the German military, but also against the societal norms that relegated them to the sidelines. Their determination to take up arms in the battle for freedom, albeit through the pen, would soon become a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of oppression. The resistance prepared for a dramatic confrontation, one that would reveal the true power of the press and the indomitable spirit of those who refused to be silenced. The women of the resistance were about to embark on a journey that would change the course of history, proving that even in the darkest of times, the written word could ignite a flame of rebellion. By 1943, the landscape of occupied France had shifted dramatically. The initial shock of the German invasion had given way to a grim reality, as the French people grappled with the harsh conditions imposed by their occupiers. Rationing, curfews, and a pervasive atmosphere of fear characterized daily life. The streets of Paris, once alive with laughter and conversation, were now filled with the sounds of marching boots and the distant rumble of military vehicles. The German authorities implemented strict controls over the press, censoring any information that contradicted their narrative. Newspapers were heavily monitored, and dissent was met with swift and brutal punishment. In this environment, the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance recognized the urgent need for an alternative source of information. They understood that the truth was a powerful tool in the struggle against oppression, and they were determined to reclaim it. The logistics of establishing an underground press were daunting. The women faced numerous challenges, from securing the necessary materials to finding safe locations for printing. Typewriters, paper, and ink were scarce commodities, hoarded by the occupiers and subject to wartime rationing. The women relied on a network of sympathetic contacts and black market connections to acquire these essential supplies, often at great personal risk. Each acquisition was a small victory, a step closer to their goal of disseminating the truth. Once the materials were secured, the women worked tirelessly to produce their publications. They set up clandestine printing operations in hidden basements and attics, where the sound of typewriters could be muffled and the risk of discovery minimized. The work was labor-intensive and fraught with danger, but the women were undeterred. They understood that their mission was vital to the morale of the French people, and they were willing to make sacrifices to see it through. The publications they produced, such as Combat and Défense de la France, quickly gained traction among the French populace. These newspapers served as lifelines, providing crucial information about the war, the activities of the resistance, and the atrocities committed by the occupiers. They countered the pervasive German propaganda that sought to instill despair and hopelessness, offering a glimmer of hope to a nation under siege. The women of the resistance were acutely aware of the risks they faced. The Gestapo was relentless in its pursuit of dissenters, and the penalties for those caught producing or distributing underground newspapers were severe. Yet, despite the ever-present danger, the women remained steadfast in their resolve. They took precautions to avoid detection, frequently changing locations and employing a variety of tactics to evade capture. Their commitment to the cause was unwavering, driven by a deep sense of duty to their country and a belief in the power of the written word. When the underground press gained momentum, the German authorities began to take notice. The Gestapo, formerly dismissive of the women's activities, had come to view them as a growing threat. The realization that these so-called newspaper women were capable of challenging their narrative was a bitter pill to swallow. The women had transformed from a dismissed group into a formidable force, capable of mobilizing the population and inspiring resistance. The women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance were not just fighting against the German occupiers, they were also challenging the societal norms that had long relegated women to the sidelines. Their efforts were a testament to the power of ordinary citizens to effect change in extraordinary circumstances. As they continued to publish and distribute their newspapers, they were rewriting the narrative of resistance, proving that courage and determination could emerge from the most unexpected places. The resistance prepared for a confrontation that would test the mettle of the resistance and the resolve of the occupiers. The women, once dismissed and underestimated, were about to demonstrate the true power of the press in France's fight for freedom. August 1944 marked a pivotal moment in the history of the French resistance, as the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance prepared to execute an audacious operation known as the August Offensive. With Allied forces advancing towards Paris, the stakes were higher than ever. The women, driven by a fierce determination to reclaim their city, aimed to distribute over 500,000 copies of their underground newspapers throughout Paris within a mere 24 hours. This ambitious plan required an unprecedented level of coordination and precision, a feat that would test their resolve and ingenuity. In the days leading up to the offensive, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. The women worked tirelessly, fueled by a sense of urgency and purpose. They printed thousands of copies of their newspapers, often working late into the night, their typewriters clattering in the dim light of hidden basements and attics. Each publication was a carefully crafted message, designed to inform, inspire, and incite action among the French populace. The articles detailed the successes of the Allied forces, the atrocities committed by the occupiers, and calls for resistance, all aimed at awakening the dormant spirit of rebellion within the hearts of Parisians. To execute their plan, the women coordinated with a vast network of distributors, each tasked with delivering bundles of newspapers to strategic locations across the city. Cafes, markets, and street corners became focal points for dissemination, as the women sought to reach as many people as possible. Every detail of the operation was meticulously planned, from the timing of the distribution to the routes taken by the distributors, all designed to minimize the risk of detection by the Gestapo. By dawn broke on August 19, 1944, the women set their plan into motion. Distributors fanned out across the city, their hearts racing with a mix of fear and exhilaration. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, the underground newspapers were in the hands of thousands of Parisians, who eagerly devoured the information contained within. The sheer volume and speed of distribution astonished the German authorities, who had never before witnessed such a coordinated effort. The operation was labeled militarily inexplicable, a testament to the effectiveness of the women's clandestine efforts. The effect of the August offensive was profound. As Parisians read the underground papers, a sense of empowerment and unity surged through the city. The publications informed citizens about the advancing Allied forces and encouraged them to rise against their occupiers. The spirit of rebellion was palpable, and the city was alive with the hope of liberation. The women had succeeded in challenging the German narrative, igniting a fire of resistance that would not be easily extinguished. In cafes and markets, the underground press became the topic of fervent discussion. People gathered in small groups, reading aloud to those who could not read, sharing the news with those who had not yet received a copy. The newspapers fostered a sense of community among the populace, a collective identity that had been suppressed by years of occupation. The words printed on those clandestine pages resonated deeply, reminding the French people of their strength and resilience in the face of tyranny. The success of the offensive was not without its challenges. The Gestapo, caught off guard by the sudden surge of resistance activity, scrambled to regain control. They intensified their efforts to locate and arrest the women behind the underground press, conducting raids and recruiting informants in a desperate bid to quell the uprising. Yet, the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance were not easily deterred. They had anticipated the response of the occupiers and had taken measures to protect themselves and their operations. Printing presses were moved frequently, hidden in unsuspecting locations, and the distribution networks were designed to be flexible and resilient. The support of the local population proved invaluable. Many Parisians, inspired by the bravery of the women, offered shelter and assistance, risking their own safety to aid the resistance. This solidarity made it increasingly difficult for the German authorities to penetrate the network of the underground press. As the days passed, the tension in the city grew. The German forces, aware of the advancing Allies, were on high alert, their presence more oppressive than ever. Yet, the spirit of rebellion, fueled by the underground press, could not be extinguished. The women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance had become symbols of hope and defiance, their efforts a testament to the power of ordinary citizens to effect change in extraordinary circumstances. The August offensive was not merely a distribution of newspapers, it was a declaration of war against the occupiers, a bold assertion of the will of the French people to reclaim their city. The women had transformed the act of printing into a form of resistance, using the written word as a weapon against oppression. Their courage and determination inspired countless others to join the fight, creating a ripple effect that would reverberate throughout the city. As the offensive unfolded, the women remained vigilant, aware that their actions could have dire consequences. The Gestapo was relentless in its pursuit of dissenters, and the penalty for those caught producing or distributing underground newspapers was severe. Yet, the women pressed on, driven by a sense of duty to their country and a belief in the power of the written word. They understood that information was a weapon, and they wielded it with precision and purpose. By the end of the day, the August offensive had achieved its goal. The underground newspapers had reached the hands of countless Parisians, igniting a spirit of rebellion that would culminate in the liberation of the city. The women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with, their efforts a testament to the power of the press in France's fight for freedom. As the city braced for the arrival of Allied forces, the women stood as unsung heroes of the resistance. Their work had been instrumental in shaping the course of events, and their legacy would endure long after the war had ended. The August offensive was a defining moment in the struggle for liberation, a testament to the courage and resilience of those who refused to be silenced. In the aftermath of the offensive, the women reflected on their journey. They had faced insurmountable odds, yet they had persevered, driven by a shared vision of a free France. The underground press had become a lifeline for the resistance, a means to inform and inspire their fellow citizens. The impact of their work was undeniable, and as they looked towards the future, they knew that their efforts would continue to resonate long after the last page was printed. The August Offensive had not only challenged the German narrative but had also transformed the perception of women in the resistance. Once dismissed and underestimated, they had emerged as key players in the fight for liberation, their contributions recognized and celebrated by a grateful nation. The power of the press had been revealed, and its impact would be felt far beyond the streets of Paris. As the sun set on August 19, 1944, the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance stood ready for the next chapter in their fight for freedom. They had ignited a spark of rebellion that could not be extinguished, and they were determined to see their mission through to the August Offensive was just the beginning, a bold declaration of their commitment to reclaiming their city and their country from the clutches of tyranny. As the sun rose over Paris on August 19, 1944, the city awoke to a new reality. The underground newspapers, produced by the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance, had reached the hands of countless Parisians. These publications, filled with news of the advancing Allied forces and calls for resistance, became a beacon of hope in a city long shrouded in the darkness of occupation. The impact of these newspapers was immediate and profound. For the first time in years, Parisians could read about the truth of the war, unfiltered by German propaganda. The articles detailed the successes of the Allied forces, the liberation of towns and cities across France, and the imminent arrival of freedom. The words printed on those clandestine pages ignited a spark of rebellion, urging citizens to rise against their oppressors. In cafes and markets, on street corners and in homes, the underground press became the topic of conversation. People gathered in small groups, reading aloud to those who could not read, sharing the news with those who had not yet received a copy. The newspapers fostered a sense of unity among the populace, a collective identity that had been suppressed by years of occupation. The women behind these publications had achieved something remarkable. They had harnessed the power of the press to challenge the German narrative, to inspire a city to action, and to remind the French people of their strength and resilience. Their efforts were not without risk. The Gestapo was relentless in its pursuit of those responsible for the underground press. Yet, the women persisted, driven by a deep sense of duty and an unwavering belief in the power of the written word. As the day progressed, the spirit of rebellion grew stronger. Parisians began to organize, forming resistance groups and preparing for the inevitable confrontation with the German forces. The underground newspapers had done more than inform. They had empowered a city to fight for its freedom. By evening, the streets of Paris were alive with activity. The sound of printing presses echoed through hidden basements and attics, as the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance continued their work. They knew that their efforts were making a difference, that their words were fueling a movement that could not be stopped. The power of the press had been revealed, and its impact would be felt far beyond the streets of Paris. As the city prepared for the final push towards liberation, the women of the resistance stood ready, their courage and determination unwavering in the face of adversity. The August Offensive had transformed the landscape of resistance, and the women had proven that they were not merely participants in the struggle but leaders in their own right. In the days that followed, the momentum of the resistance continued to build. The underground newspapers became a rallying cry for the people of Paris, a call to arms that resonated deeply within the hearts of those who had long suffered under occupation. The women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance played a crucial role in this awakening, their words inspiring a sense of urgency and purpose among the populace. As the Allied forces drew closer, the atmosphere in the city shifted. The once dominant presence of the German occupiers began to wane, their control weakened by the growing resistance. The women of the underground press had not only informed the public but had also instilled a sense of hope and determination that was palpable in the air. Parisians began to believe that liberation was within reach, and they were ready to fight for it. The women understood that their work was far from over. They continued to print and distribute their newspapers, adapting their messages to reflect the evolving situation on the ground. Each edition became a testament to the resilience of the French spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope could prevail. As the days turned into weeks, the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance became increasingly aware of the risks they faced. The Gestapo, desperate to quell the uprising, intensified their efforts to locate and arrest those responsible for the underground press. Raids were conducted, informants were recruited, and a climate of fear descended upon the city. Yet, the women remained undeterred, their resolve strengthened by the knowledge that they were making a difference. The power of the press had become a double-edged sword. While it served as a tool for resistance, it also painted a target on the backs of those who wielded it. The women knew that they were putting their lives on the line, yet they pressed on, driven by a deep sense of responsibility to their fellow citizens. They understood that France's fight for freedom was not just about their own survival, it was about the future of their country. As the liberation of Paris drew nearer, the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance found themselves at the forefront of a movement that was larger than themselves. Their courage and ingenuity inspired countless others to join the fight, creating a ripple effect that would reverberate throughout the city. On August 25, 1944, the streets of Paris erupted in celebration. The Allied forces had entered the city, and the long-awaited liberation was at hand. The women who had worked tirelessly in the shadows now stepped into the light, their contributions recognized and celebrated by a grateful nation. The fall of Paris marked a significant shift in the narrative of the war, and the role of women in the resistance, once dismissed by the occupiers, was now undeniable. The enduring legacy of the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance would persist long after the war had ended. Their bravery and ingenuity in establishing an underground press not only contributed to the liberation of Paris but also inspired future generations to recognize the importance of resistance and the power of the written word. The story of these women serves as a testament to the often overlooked roles that civilians, particularly women, played in the resistance against tyranny during World War II. As France rebuilt in the aftermath of war, the enduring legacy of the underground press continued to inspire. The story of these women, who had risked everything to fight for their country, serves as a reminder of the strength of the human spirit and the power of collective action. The power of the press, once wielded in the shadows, had emerged into the light, a symbol of hope and resilience in the face of oppression. In the years that followed, the women of the resistance were celebrated for their courage and resilience. Monuments were erected, and their stories were told in books and films, ensuring that their legacy would not be forgotten. Their efforts had demonstrated the power of ordinary citizens to effect change, a lesson that resonated in the post-war world. The underground press, once a tool of resistance, became a symbol of the enduring power of the written word. It reminded the world of the importance of free expression and the role of the press in holding power to account. The women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance had shown that words could be as powerful as weapons, capable of inspiring change and challenging oppression. As the sun set on August 25, 1944, the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance stood ready for the next chapter in their fight for freedom. They had ignited a spark of rebellion that could not be extinguished, and they were determined to see their mission through to the power of the press had been revealed, and its impact would be felt far beyond the streets of Paris. As the August offensive unfolded, the response from the German occupiers was swift and brutal. The Gestapo, caught off guard by the sheer volume of resistance activity, intensified their efforts to locate and arrest the women behind the underground press. The atmosphere in Paris shifted dramatically. The once dismissive attitudes of the German authorities transformed into a palpable fear of the very women they had underestimated. The stakes were higher than ever, and the consequences of the women's actions reverberated throughout the city. The German response was characterized by a series of aggressive raids aimed at dismantling the network of the underground press. The Gestapo, recognizing the power of information as a weapon, sought to silence the voices that had rallied the populace against them. They deployed informants, increased patrols, and conducted house-to-house searches, all in an effort to root out the resistance. The once vibrant streets of Paris became a landscape of tension and fear, as the occupiers sought to quash the spirit of rebellion that had taken hold. Yet, the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance were not easily deterred. They had anticipated the German response, and their resilience was a testament to their commitment to the cause. In the face of danger, they adapted their strategies, moving printing presses to new locations and employing a network of trusted collaborators to ensure the continued distribution of their publications. The underground press had become a lifeline for the resistance, and the women understood that their work was more critical than ever. The moral dilemmas faced by these women were profound. They grappled with the risks not only to themselves but also to their families and communities. Each time they printed a newspaper or distributed a pamphlet, they placed themselves in jeopardy, knowing that the Gestapo was relentless in its pursuit of dissenters. The reality of arrest, imprisonment, or even execution loomed large, yet their resolve remained unshaken. They were driven by a sense of duty to their country and a belief in the power of the written word to inspire change. As the days passed, the tension in the city escalated. The German forces, aware of the advancing Allied troops, were on high alert, their presence more oppressive than ever. Parisians, however, emboldened by the underground press, began to organize themselves into resistance groups, prepared to confront their occupiers. The women's publications had not only informed the public but had also ignited a collective consciousness that transcended fear. The spirit of rebellion was palpable, and the city buzzed with the anticipation of liberation. The consequences of the August offensive extended beyond the immediate response of the occupiers. The women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance had succeeded in fostering a sense of unity among the French people, a collective identity that had been suppressed for years. Their efforts transformed the narrative of the occupation, shifting the perception of resistance from a fringe activity to a widespread movement. The underground press became a symbol of hope, a reminder that France's fight for freedom was not only possible but necessary. As the Gestapo intensified their crackdown, the women faced increasing scrutiny and danger. Many were forced to go into hiding, while others were arrested and interrogated. The price of resistance was steep, and the sacrifices made by these women were profound. Yet, their legacy was already taking shape. The courage displayed in the face of adversity inspired others to join the fight, creating a ripple effect that would resonate throughout the city. The moral complexities of their actions weighed heavily on the women. They were aware that their efforts could lead to dire consequences for those around them. Yet, they believed that the potential for liberation outweighed the risks. The underground press had become a powerful tool for resistance, and the women understood that their voices could not be silenced. They were determined to continue their work, even as the threat of the Gestapo loomed large. In the weeks leading up to the liberation of Paris, the atmosphere in the city was charged with anticipation. The women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance had become symbols of defiance, their efforts a testament to the power of ordinary citizens to effect change in extraordinary circumstances. The consequences of their actions were not merely personal. They had sparked a movement that would ultimately lead to the liberation of Paris. As the Allied forces approached, the women prepared for the final push. They understood that their work was far from over. The liberation of the city would require a united front. The underground press had laid the groundwork for this moment, and the women were ready to play their part in France's fight for freedom. The consequences of their actions had transformed the landscape of resistance in Paris, and they were determined to see it through to the. On August 25, 1944, the streets of Paris erupted in celebration as the Allied forces entered the city. The long-awaited liberation had arrived, and the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance emerged from the shadows as unsung heroes of this historic moment. Their contributions to the resistance, particularly through the underground press, had played a crucial role in mobilizing the population and challenging the German narrative. The aftermath of liberation was a time of profound transformation for Paris and its inhabitants. The women who had worked tirelessly to disseminate information and inspire resistance were now recognized for their bravery and ingenuity. The city, once shrouded in the darkness of occupation, was alive with the sounds of celebration. The tricolor flag flew proudly from windows and rooftops, symbolizing the triumph of the French spirit over tyranny. Yet, the transformation was not without its complexities. The liberation of Paris marked a significant shift in the narrative of the war, but it also raised questions about the future of France and the role of women in society. The contributions of women in the resistance, once dismissed by the occupiers, were now undeniable. Their courage and resilience had been instrumental in the liberation of the city, challenging traditional notions of gender and power. In the immediate aftermath of liberation, the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance found themselves at a crossroads. While they were celebrated as heroes, many grappled with the realities of returning to a society that had been irrevocably changed by war. The roles they had assumed during the occupation, leaders, organizers, and voices of resistance, were not easily relinquished. The war had transformed them, and they were determined to ensure that their contributions would not be forgotten. The underground press, once a tool of resistance, became a symbol of the enduring power of the written word in the post-war world. It served as a reminder of the importance of free expression and the role of the press in holding power to account. The women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance had demonstrated that words could be as powerful as weapons, capable of inspiring change and challenging oppression. As France rebuilt in the aftermath of war, the enduring legacy of the underground press continued to inspire future generations. The story of these women, who had risked everything to fight for their country, became a part of the national narrative. Monuments were erected, and their stories were told in books and films, ensuring that their legacy would endure. They had proven that ordinary citizens could effect extraordinary change, a lesson that resonated in the post-war world. However, the aftermath of liberation also revealed the moral dilemmas that lingered. The women of the resistance faced the challenge of reconciling their wartime actions with the realities of peace. Some were hailed as heroes, while others faced scrutiny for their choices during the occupation. The complexities of collaboration and resistance became topics of heated debate, as the nation grappled with its collective memory of the war. The women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance had become symbols of hope and defiance, their efforts a testament to the power of ordinary citizens to effect change in extraordinary circumstances. Their determination and ingenuity had turned the tide of the resistance, challenging the might of the German occupiers and inspiring a city to rise. The transformation of Paris was not just a physical liberation, it was a profound shift in the consciousness of its people. As the city moved forward, the enduring legacy of the underground press remained a vital part of the collective memory. It served as a reminder of the power of information and the importance of standing up against oppression. The women who had once been dismissed as the newspaper women were now celebrated as pioneers of resistance, their contributions shaping the narrative of freedom and resilience. In the years that followed, the account of the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance would continue to inspire those who fought for justice and equality. Their legacy would endure as a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the power of collective action. The transformation of Paris was a reminder that, even in the darkest of times, hope and courage could prevail. The liberation of Paris in August 1944 marked not just a pivotal moment in the history of France, but also a significant turning point in the narrative of World War II. As the dust settled and the city began to heal from years of occupation, the contributions of the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance emerged from the shadows, their legacy firmly etched in the annals of history. The underground press they had established had played a crucial role in mobilizing the French populace, and its impact would resonate far beyond the immediate aftermath of the war. In the years following the liberation, the women who had once been dismissed as mere newspaper women were celebrated as heroines. Their bravery and ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds became a source of inspiration for a nation eager to rebuild and redefine itself. The stories of these women were woven into the fabric of French history, serving as a testament to the power of ordinary citizens to effect change in extraordinary circumstances. As France emerged from the ashes of war, efforts to commemorate the contributions of the resistance, particularly those of women, gained momentum. Monuments were erected in honor of the brave souls who had fought against tyranny, and the stories of female resistance fighters began to be told alongside their male counterparts. In 1946, the French government officially recognized the role of women in the resistance, a significant step towards acknowledging their contributions to the war effort. One of the most notable commemorations was the establishment of the Monument to the Resistance in Paris, which included inscriptions honoring the women who had played pivotal roles in the fight against the occupiers. This monument became a site of pilgrimage for those wishing to pay their respects to the unsung heroes of the resistance. Additionally, various streets and public squares were named after prominent female figures in the resistance, ensuring that their legacies would be remembered by future generations. In literature and film, the stories of the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance began to find their voices. Authors and filmmakers sought to capture the essence of their bravery, creating works that highlighted the often overlooked contributions of women during the war. Documentaries and historical accounts emerged, detailing the clandestine operations of the underground press and the impact it had on the course of the war. These narratives not only celebrated the women's courage but also challenged traditional gender roles, illustrating that women could be powerful agents of change in times of crisis. As the years passed, educational initiatives were developed to ensure that the enduring legacy of the resistance, particularly the role of women, would be preserved for future generations. Schools across France began to incorporate the stories of female resistance fighters into their curricula, teaching students about the importance of resilience, courage, and France's fight for freedom. The narrative shifted from one that largely focused on male combatants to a more inclusive account that recognized the contributions of women in various capacities. In 1985, the French Ministry of Education launched a program called Les Femmes dans la Résistance, Women in the Resistance, aimed at educating young people about the vital roles women played during the war. This initiative included workshops, lectures, and the distribution of educational materials that highlighted the stories of women like Lucy Aubrac, who became a symbol of female resistance. The program not only served to honor their legacy but also inspired a new generation to stand up against injustice and oppression. The enduring legacy of the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance transcended the historical narrative, influencing the cultural landscape of post-war France. The feminist movement that gained momentum in the 1960s and 1970s drew inspiration from the stories of these women, who had defied societal norms and expectations to fight for their country. The resistance became a powerful symbol of empowerment, illustrating that women could be leaders, strategists, and warriors in their own right. As feminist scholars began to explore the history of women in the resistance, their work contributed to a broader understanding of gender dynamics during wartime. The narratives of female resistance fighters were analyzed through the lens of feminism, highlighting the struggles they faced not only against the occupiers but also within a patriarchal society that often sought to marginalize their contributions. This intersection of history and feminism helped to reshape the discourse surrounding women's roles in both war and peace, emphasizing the need for recognition and equality. The underground press established by the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance served as a powerful reminder of the importance of free expression and the role of the press in holding power to account. In the decades following the war, the legacy of their work continued to resonate in discussions about media freedom and the responsibilities of journalists. The lessons learned from their experiences became particularly relevant in the context of modern conflicts and authoritarian regimes, where the suppression of dissenting voices remains a pressing issue. In contemporary France, the principles of the underground press have been invoked in various movements advocating for press freedom and social justice. The spirit of resistance embodied by the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance has inspired journalists and activists alike to challenge oppressive regimes and fight for the rights of marginalized communities. Their legacy serves as a reminder that the written word can be a powerful tool for change, capable of inspiring action and fostering solidarity among those who seek justice. The account of the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance has transcended national borders, inspiring movements for freedom and justice around the world. Their courage in the face of oppression has resonated with individuals and groups fighting against tyranny in various contexts, from authoritarian regimes to colonial struggles. The underground press they established has become a symbol of resistance, illustrating the power of information and the importance of standing up against injustice. In recent years, the global rise of social media has echoed the principles of the underground press, providing platforms for marginalized voices to be heard. Activists around the world have harnessed the power of digital communication to challenge oppressive systems, drawing inspiration from the legacy of those who fought for freedom through the written word. The women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance serve as a reminder that the fight for justice is ongoing and that the spirit of resistance can manifest in various forms. As we reflect on the enduring legacy of the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance, it is clear that their contributions to the resistance movement were not only instrumental in the liberation of Paris but also transformative in shaping the narrative of women's roles in history. Their courage, ingenuity, and unwavering commitment to the cause of freedom continue to inspire individuals and movements around the world. The underground press they established serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of free expression, the resilience of the human spirit, and the capacity for ordinary individuals to effect extraordinary change. The legacy of these women is a testament to the enduring power of the written word and the impact it can have in the fight against oppression. In commemorating their contributions, we honor not only their bravery but also the countless others who fought for freedom in various capacities. The account of the women of the Comité d'Action de la Résistance is a call to action for future generations, urging them to stand up against injustice and to recognize the power they hold in shaping the world around them. As we move forward, let us carry their legacy with us, ensuring that the lessons learned from their struggles continue to resonate in our pursuit of justice and equality. The spirit of resistance lives on, a testament to the courage of those who refuse to be silenced.